Gentleman's time's expired. Mr. Moran's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a greatness in America that has often been reflected over the history of our nation by the greatness in some of our largest cities, like New York City, like Philadelphia, like a couple cities in my state, Austin and Houston, to name a few. But widespread movements in these cities to focus support for criminals instead of victims, to put progressive liberal politics ahead of the lives of all individuals, regardless of political affiliation, to put sound bites ahead of sound policy, and to focus on social justice rather than actual justice have resulted in these Democrat-run cities, like New York City, being less safe. Of course, if you're talking about the safety and protection of criminals, that's different. Mr. Giacomo, let me see if I understand a couple of statistics correctly, and I'll ask you a couple questions about this. When it relates to Alvin Bragg's Manhattan District Attorney's Office, not even going back before that, but just looking at what he's done and looking at the process in particular. Let's start with somebody that's committed a criminal offense, a felony offense. Since 2019, if you compare 2019 to 2022 statistics, Alvin Bragg has declined to prosecute 35% less felonies than before. But even with those felonies that were charged, he's downgraded 52% of those felonies down to misdemeanors. Right. And even when you get past that, of those felonies that actually make it to trial, Alvin Bragg's office is only successful in about half of those cases. So when you start doing the mathematical calculations, if you're a criminal in this city that commits a felony, by the time he declines to prosecute and then downgrades a portion of that what's left and then actually prosecutes those that are left and is unsuccessful in about half of those cases, probably only 1 in 5 at best, maybe 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 that commit a felony criminal offense in the city of New York City and in the Manhattan district in particular actually get convicted of that felony conviction. Is that true?
That's counterproductive to the victims of crime. Correct.
And once convicted, then based on Alvin Bragg's day one memo, he's encouraged less and less of those criminals to actually receive jail time. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
Now, how does that work with the morale of the NYPD?
Well, we're seeing it now where we're having, so many members of the NYPD leaving for other departments and detectives with years and years of experience and knowledge retiring. It's going to have a major impact on public safety here in New York City.
Yeah, does it actually affect their ability to perform their duties?
Oh, absolutely. If you're not prosecuting the crime, again, you're putting your life on the line every time you encounter a criminal or a criminal element, and just for this individual to be let out again, and all your work was done for no reason.
I'd like to know what you're hearing, because you have your ear to the ground. What are you hearing from the men and women, the brave men and women of the NYPD, about their desire to continue to serve under these kind of circumstances?
It's policing here in New York City is the most difficult I've seen it in 40 years. It's almost impossible for these young cops and old and detectives to do their job effectively because you don't have a clear understanding and working relationship with the district attorney's office.
And how does it affect their job and their ability to perform their job that about half of those actually charged with felonies are out on without any bail at all, awaiting trial, and only about half are in?
Well, it breaks the morale, and it breaks your desire to serve and protect the people of the city.
Do you see oftentimes when these that have committed felonies that are awaiting trial are actually out there committing more felonies while they're in their pretrial state?
Well, that's the sad part about this. They're out again victimizing the people of the city. And, excuse me, that's why the morale in the NYPD is so low right now.
One of the things that you mentioned in your testimony, your written testimony, is about juvenile offenders.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about juvenile offenders under Alvin Bragg's district attorney's office, whether or not they're committing more crimes, whether or not they are incentivized to be part of gangs more than they were before.
Well, it used to be 2% of the crimes in New York City. It's now double digits. And they're committing more crimes, carrying more firearms because they know there are no consequences.
Yeah, and these are the illegal firearms that we've been talking about so
Correct.
much that Alvin Bragg's office has decided not to prosecute under existing law. Is that true?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you for your time. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman.